That includes you too, Duncan, please. Good morning, everyone, members of the public, staff and councillors. We're here for the long-term plan. Kendall, are you leading this? Welcome. Aidan, you're leading off.
Good morning, everyone. Just to, as the Mayor said, this is another long-term plan workshop. Today is our last of these workshops. Just to note that there has been a slight reschedule. Sarah is unable to be here today, so she will be finishing her financial strategy conversations with you next Tuesday. And with that in mind, there was only a little bit to cover off on Thursday, so we brought that forward so that you could gain a day back. So that's the reasoning behind the reshuffle. So today we're going to be starting off with our events and venues team and Destination Great Lake Taupō and Amplify. So those will be the first groups that we're working through today. And then after that, we will move into our community leaderships space. And that has a lot of our operational teams in that area. So yes, you'll have an opportunity to discuss things with them as well. So yes, given we don't need to jump into the financial strategy this morning, we will jump straight into the groups. There are 3 areas set up. So if you do you need me to separate you or or if you want to make your way to one of the 3 corners and start your discussions, and then we will come back to the table as we have for you to discuss while and debate anything that you've seen and wanted. Yeah.
So it almost divides into groups of 4, so self-divide. It's probably the easiest way.
So if we can just, as Councillor Mananui was just going to jump on for the feedback sessions, if possible. He is juggling, so just acknowledging that. I think we just carry on because he is also at another hui, so he was just going to try. So I can text him if you want, or you're good. And if he doesn't join us, that's obviously him busy. So.
Okay, so this is the opportunity where we come back to the table and sort of have a group discussion and debate, raise any questions, and try and be specific about where we sort of put our dot and what we were thinking in that space, so that we can firm up some direction to go back to the teams to inform their planning. And we'll start with district events and venues, if we can. Before Andrew takes it away. Seems to be most of the dots are in the satisfied community, reasonably important to the community. And then there's a mixture of dots in between. Keep services and look at savings. So keen for feedback on what specifically you'd like us to look at in that space.
Through the chair, I just wanted to ask the staff, and I didn't, how much sort of income do we get when we get events coming to town? How much do we charge? Like if people require portaloos and things like that? I'm sorry, Steve, I should have asked you that question, and I didn't, because that's actually quite important. So we do lots of lovely events and that, but how much of it do we send out an invoice for?
Very little, Councillor. So ultimately, Council's support for events is to attract them here. Our income sources come through if the event is using our facilities. So where possible, we will use community or ratepayer-owned facilities, but equally too, it's important that we support our private sector. So I guess if you look at the event budget, so the donations, grants and funding, our line is 400, well has been 488,000. That'll drop to 438,000 for the next financial year moving forward. That 480,000 previously returns about $34 million a year in direct spend back into our community. So that is an income. There's no income coming to council in that quantum of money. The income is being captured by our accommodation sectors, our hospitality, our tourism sectors, businesses, secondary and tertiary sectors in that space there.
I wish I could get a return like that on 400.
Yeah, look, we're pretty lucky. We were a small part of tourism, and I guess this is that the Venn diagram where we all sit, the CCOs and events sit in this space is, tourism, 20% of our GDP, some $660 million a year in tourism spend. Events play a role and part in that wider piece.
Steve, just before you run away, that's what people confirm from internationally. They thought Taupō did exceptionally well, how friendly it was, and how happy, and they're looking forward to returning. That's a bit that I'd like to hear from.
I think, and for a number of years, and we're all, Sinead, Bryce, myself, we're all just doing a job for a period of time, but at times I think we've got a storytelling role to play in this space about we do punch well above our weight in what this community can produce on a constant annual basis when it comes to events and tourism.
I believe we are the events capital of New Zealand, and I don't say that tongue in cheek. I don't know of any other areas that match what we do, and so I think we can't underestimate what it does for Taupō, and not only the revenue it brings in, but the reputation.
Yeah. Hi, Steve. Sorry, I forgot to ask you. I saw on the list over there that there was a sister city.
Yes.
Thing.
Yes. Suzhou. Yes.
Suzhou.
Yes.
I'm just keen to understand a bit more about that, like at a high level, and how the sister city type of model might work for us in Taupō.
Yeah, cool. So Taupō has a number of sister city relationships. New Caledonia is another one, Suzhou, and the one that's on the board there is pertaining to that. Back in 2016, 2018, Taupō hosted a Shuzo, an art exhibition through the museum, and also the city of Shuzo gifted an archway to the town of Taupō, and that's placed down on the Tongariro South Domain, overlooking the lake. It's a big concrete statue. If you're on Ferry Road, so the lake overlooking, the road overlooking the lake, down by the yacht club. So that sort of started that relationship. Part of that relationship then was the opportunity of a reciprocal cultural exhibition for Taupō to take back to the city of Shuzo. Shuzo's museum is, I'm going to say, is the largest in China. If not the largest, it's one of the largest in China. It has an international exhibition hall in it. It's 1,000 square metres of space, so big space, about half the size of Taupō's event centre. The country of Denmark have just had an exhibition there in Shuzo. Part of the exhibition was a Viking warship, that was the centrepiece of the exhibition. Shuzo have reached out and have invited Taupō to the reciprocal art exhibition in Shuzo for the year in 2028, and that relationship began back in 2018. We began some work back in 2019 for that exhibition. Obviously, the global pandemic arrived in 2020 and stopped all those relationships. The city has reached out, has invited Taupō to an exhibition, a cultural exhibition, in 2028. So that is on the table. And ultimately, for elected members to decide, is that something you're wanting to resurrect? Is this the right time to be doing this? What does that look like? If we did an exhibition, very much it would be partnering with Tū Whare Toa in that space.
Nicola.
Oh, I guess just this is not what I was going to say or my question, but what do you think is the major benefit of that relationship to Taupō? Like, what if you were to pitch us staying in that relationship and sorry, off the top of your head, anything that springs to mind, or we can take it into a different discussion?
Look, in the one conversation we had online with him about a week ago in this space, 2 million people visited the Denmark exhibition in a 6-month exhibition, and that's what they're offering Taupō. So global exposure, I guess, would be the first thing just off the top of my head in that space. They did offer in the conversations, they're very keen to explore educational exchanges and cultural exchanges. So whether that extends to staff from a museum to museum space, we know both Tauhara and Taupo-Nuitia as colleges have international student programs running within the schools. Anik, who leads the program for Nui, I think is over in Europe at the moment, looking for students. So there is certainly, that's a lucrative angle opportunity for our colleges. So perhaps from a council perspective, supporting an education space there.
Thank you. If we're looking at areas we'd like to scope out and discuss further, that would be sort of one for me. What I was going to say is just a conflict of interest from the outset. So I do organise an event that receives council funding. So you can premise that with what I'm about to say, but I think the events team do a fabulous job. No, seriously, the events and venues team, I've had a lot of time working with them. The pressures that an increase in population has put on our venues is high, and they do a great job at managing the space for our venues and trying to have a fair representation of all the different groups that need to use these venues, some of which weren't here sort of 10, 20 years ago. So just want to acknowledge the team for the great job they do there. I'm keen to scope out some of the areas that were on the board there of what is the role of council, I guess in particular, options around the rock wall and whether that's still something that works for us as well as it has previously. And then I'm also keen to discuss it at this table so we can give some feedback around, the types of events that we would like, coming into this town, so we can give, a better gauge and help the team with the limited funding they do have where we'd like, and we could, that money to go in terms of events. Thanks.
No, who are you?
Just a quick plug, just to remember when we are talking about cultural exchanges and, getting involved with schools,
Yep.
not to forget about our kura and our schools down in Turangi
Yep.
and around the whole rohe, not just focusing on the two big ones when it comes to secondary school. But also, I think it was all three of these topics today. I understand the work they do and the awesome opportunities they do bring to Taupō as a district, but I still constantly think, what is Turangi getting out of any of these? It's just, Taupō's Taupō. It is successful. It will continue to bring in those dollars and those events. But what are we doing for Turangi, Mangakino, Pukawa, the other side of the lake? It's just a bit of a sore point, I guess, because, we're having our little local events down in Turangi and they're wonderful, but we don't see anyone outside of Turangi down there.
Rachel, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in and talk a little bit about Suzhou, given that I did actually attend a sister city exchange there. And I went to the Suzhou Museum, and it is so incredibly famous that it can often take 2 weeks to book your spot to go and visit the Suzhou Museum. Just as a matter of interest, the architect that designed Suzhou Museum also designed the Louvre. So that's how popular and well frequented that particular museum is. So I know there was talk with Tūwharetoa about the cultural exchange there, and that could be something worth looking into. And it was certainly something I thought was probably a good outcome from the sister city arrangement. I know they have one school that they have a sister city connection with, and that's St Pat's. And there's another middle school over in Suzhou that I visited, and they do look at exchanges. So there is a bigger, I guess, benefit to some of these sister city arrangements, but whether or not under the current environment, financially and globally, whether it's a thing we continue, who knows. But just on the topic at hand, I wonder about depreciation on some of the venues that we have, and whether or not we need to be paying for depreciation on all of those venues. So that's perhaps something to look at. We've also talked about perhaps the library having longer opening hours, but that being an operational expense. Could we look at potential membership, less staff, no staff after a certain time, a bit like a gym membership? Then we've got some income coming in, less staff. I like the idea of privatising the rock wall, and I really like the idea of joint ventures and partnerships with third-party funders and the like. And I happen to know, and I've encouraged a group who are looking at trying to put some money together to build something that would perhaps solve our fourth court problem. And I've invited them to speak at the next public forum so that the councillors around the table can hear what their particular scope is. And, the potential is there that we only have to front up with some land. Now, how great would that be if we could get something like that off the ground?
Thank you, Rachel. Hope.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to support what Rachel said then. That's some really great information and some exciting ideas. And just to back up what Nahuia was mentioning as well, I think that our district events are fantastic, and we're so lucky that we get so many events here, but we do see the representation not spread across the district. For a good example of this, we've got the wakeboard national competition on this weekend in Mangakino, and I'm not sure if any of Taupō knows about it, if it's been advertised. We'd love people to come out to our community and spend some money if they've got any, and just enjoy our beautiful community, because it is that, and we want to keep our community going. So things like that are a definite thing that we need to be paying attention to, and specifically also in that's where we're getting our lakefront development, but where our little road that actually leads into the lakefront, which is what we were discussing this morning, team, is still not fixed, and we've got very expensive wakeboard boats about to go through there. So again, just making sure that we're representing fairly across our districts is very important, specifically for us.
Thank you, Hope. Aidan, I think.
Anything further on district events and venues before we move on? Okay, we'll switch to Amplify now. Same
Thank you, Steve.
process. You've identified a reasonable high level of satisfaction and importance to the community. There's a lot of dots there, thank you Sandra, around continuing with current service levels, but there's also a couple in the review, and there was some chatter we heard. It'd be good to capture some of the feedback you had on options you'd like explored in that space.
Yep, one of those two dots was me, and it wasn't to review to cut, but more review based on the current service levels that Amplify offer. I think we had a good discussion over there with Rick in terms of looking at maybe some different modelling, or looking at the Rotorua model, for example, in terms of their Amplify, and then the likes of their version of DGLT being together, and then they separated and they're together again. I think just maybe looking at a completely different way to do things. That was all.
Christine.
I just want to say that I believe the three components that we've looked at today work incredibly well. And that doesn't mean that things shouldn't be taken out, but don't break things that are working. Don't just go and break them because there might be a different way of doing them. I've watched other councils combine things and it's an utter disaster. We've got three components that are working magnificently, and there might be bits to simplify or streamline, but I say be very, very careful at touching something as successful as that. That makes me really nervous. It's not just a process. In fact, it's a process that'll cost money that could ruin everything at the end of the day. So I am super cautious about that. I have huge respect for Amplify, which I'm part of. I just think they are magnificent, and yes, they, I'm sure, can keep on improving. It's the same with DGLT. At our peril, we play with this, and events, gosh, how lucky are we with that? So I'm not a conservative no, yes I am, but I'm not in terms of business, but this really frightens me if we're just thinking of, let's just flip it up in the air and see what other way we can do it. They are working incredibly well, so that makes me just a little nervous.
Rick and Patrick, I think that was the message for you to stand up and take a bow. We've got Councillor Rankin offering platitudes like that. That's well done. I endorse what Christine's saying. Kevin.
Yeah, I agree with Christine's comments as well. I guess the question is, we look at this from a dollar saving point of view, but it's the value added and it's the other things that are going on. And I reflect on the not the bus tour, the car convoy tour we had, Rick, and I wonder whether most of the community are completely unaware of the extraordinary things that are going on, that the value added to the community. So I agree as well. Not sure if we penny pinched on a few things here that would actually result in savings. That would be a negative move in my view. If it ain't broke, don't mess with it.
Through the chair. Through the chair. Okay. Without gilding the lily, I'm on DGLT board, and I actually consider it to be a huge privilege to be on that board. So a little bit more sort of inside information on how it actually functions and works, and exactly what both the councillors have said. And one of the things that was noted when we were over there talking was, one of the councillors commented, "Oh, but nobody knows who you guys are, and nobody really sort of knows what you do." Well, you know, that's not a problem. Actually, people working behind the scenes doing a great job. You know, our message was, don't waste your money telling people what you do. It's a waste of money. You're doing it, and it is being done in quite an understated way, and we would most definitely notice it if we didn't have it. One of the statistics that's come out just recently, which astounded me, was that 80% of the spend in the Taupō shops is for out-of-towners. And it just shows you how incredibly important both DGLT in attracting people to come here, and of course amplifying the business where they're supporting the business actually is. I just think that's an amazing statistic. It supports everything that we feel about these two organisations.
Rachel, please.
Through the chair, thank you. Look, I think Amplify and DGLT do a really fabulous job too, but the reality is they're probably not going to be considered our core business under a rates cap. So how do we move forward by not making any changes and fitting in with the community's expectation that we're going to come under a rates cap? So we do have to look at how we do things. I really like some of the suggestions on the board from DGLT, possible membership, bed tax funding. You know, we have to find another way. We have to. We can't just keep pumping money in when it's not considered our core business and we're working under a rates cap environment. So with all due respect, and I mean that sincerely to the teams at Amplify and DGLT, we are simply going to have to find another way.
Duncan.
Oh, are we talking about? Are we got onto DGLT yet, or was that the next thing?
No,
or is it all morphed together? Oh no, I'll save it till then. Is that?
You're welcome to talk about anything.
No. Well, just on the back of that, yeah. I mean, talking to Patrick on the topic of a bed tax, I think that ultimately that has to be a really solid option for the funding of these organised, especially DGLT, which is attracting tourists. And the suggestion was made that because Rotorua operate, have a functioning bed tax going. Well, I've heard from the man just over there that it's actually operating quite well, and they bring in about $1.5 million a year, and it's something that we should seriously be considering emulating. And they're not far away. We can bring them over here, and they can tell us how it goes. Sounds like a good idea to me.
So you're talking short-term stay people, Duncan, is that what you mean?
Yes, and I believe I think it's more that I think the Rotorua model. I don't think it targets. It might not be targeting the commercial hotels, but more the B&Bs. So. I mean that'll be a discussion in itself, but if it's functioning in Rotorua and it seems to be bringing in some money, then that's the obvious vehicle that we could be getting money for these.
Thank you, Duncan. Kevin.
This was a conversation we had a couple of years ago and decided it was too costly and too difficult and parked it, but I'm conscious of, Patrick, conversation you and I have had, and that the Rotorua model appears to be working. It's not so much a bed tax as opposed to a rates imposition. There's a number of advantages there in that it also levels the playing field for the commercial accommodation providers who have been pretty vocal with us around level playing field. But there's a balance here because we need the short-term accommodation for our major events weekends, and you can't cut it all off or make it too difficult, because then it becomes very difficult to find a bed here. So there is a balance, but I'd be all in favour of having the conversation again about how we approach that income stream, whether it's based on the Rotorua model or a different one or not. But I understand, Patrick, you've got some information on that, and happy to explore that.
Thank you, Kevin. Rachel.
Just on that, I asked a similar question because I was here when we did raise it, and it was decided at the time it was very costly operationally, and there were legal challenges with other councils trying to implement a bed tax or something of the like. But now that we have some working models, we've had advancements in AI, a lot of that work can be done quite cheaply. I think it's something we absolutely should be looking at because, as you say, you know, the hotels, motels, they have to meet all kinds of compliance in order to be accommodation providers, but Airbnb and short-term rentals don't have to meet any. And not only that, but they sort of fly under the radar across the board. So I actually think we're obligated to look at this. We need to level the playing field, and this seems like a really good way to make a start, is by looking at how Rotorua's got it working. I think Queenstown's got it working. Potentially, and Christchurch have a working model. So now that we've got these working models, there's no reason why we can't investigate that further now.
Any further comments from around the table?
Sorry. Okay, well, if there's no further feedback on those three, we will move into the next activity areas. Just to note that these are a little bit different. These the next lot of activities coming up are more operational in nature. So while they are operational, we still wanted to be able to have a conversation with you so that you had a holistic overview of what council is doing, even if it's not customer focused and community focused, sorry. So we will be splitting again into 3 groups, but you will have three or two people from different areas in each space to talk with. The other different aspect to this conversation is there won't be any red dots. However, there is still the ability to put up as many post-it notes as you like in terms of feedback or questions that you have on these activities. So yes, again, just changing it up, just given like I said, the operational nature of these different activities. So we will again do 10 minutes in each corner. I'll let you know when to move around, and then we'll come back to the table.
Yeah, Kendall, if I could just add, you've done a great explanation, but these are what we call our internal or enabling functions. So these are the functions that exist inside the council that support us to deliver to the community. So the levels of service that are set in these activities depend on what you decide for your external activities, hence the slightly different approach. I know the team here are really keen to have a conversation with you, so hence why we're doing this piece of work, but we are doing it slightly differently. So I appreciate your input in terms of that, but think about it slightly differently as we work around the room.
So, Kendall, when you're ready. Councillor Greenslade, you are. Yes. I get enjoyment out of reminding school teachers they're late.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your time and talking to all the staff. I know that I saw some good conversations and things like that going on. And thank you for your feedback that you've provided on those post-its. That will help us go away and look at that information as well, and how we need to bring that back at the later wrap-up session. So just given with time, I'm just conscious that we've still got another activity to work on as well. So we will move into what we wanted to do with you today as well. Given it is the last one, we got there, and we just wanted to have a bit of a conversation about where things have landed, so that Aidan and myself and the rest of our colleagues can go back and start basically pulling together what you guys have given us direction on at the moment. So, so yeah, what we'll do first is we will go back to a list of all of the activity areas that we have covered over the last, I think, 3 weeks. And if you can just let us know if there's anything in there that you might want to quickly revisit. I know there was a comment in some earlier workshops that you might have missed a few things. So I'll bring that list up, and if there's anything on there that you want to just throw at us now, that would be great. Hopefully this works. There we go. Okay, I'm not sure how to make it fit the screen, sorry. There we go. So I'll just read them out if that's okay. So we've covered off the airport, animal control and compliance, cemeteries, council-controlled organisations and partnerships, community engagement, community halls, community leadership, so that was just the stuff we did now, events and venues, emergency management, facilities management, housing for the elderly, iwi engagement, co-governance, libraries, pools, policy and planning, parks and reserves, regulatory and consenting, stormwater, strategic property, Taupō museum and art gallery, transport, wastewater and water. So that's everything that we've worked through. It's quite a list. So yeah, if there's anything there that you want to add for us to go back and have another think about, or if there's any additional information that you would like to know about any of those areas, obviously don't want to put you on the spot, but please feel free to email us if something does come up over the next week or so that you want.
Sandra, microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kendall. Looking right across the whole organisation and thinking how we do things now, it's going to be a challenge for managers in particular to use AI going forward in a very efficient way to add value to what we already do, and make sure that it is actually used. And there's no one particular area that you can point to, I don't think. I mean, there are some that are obvious, but I just sort of feel like, we haven't really discussed it, and it does really apply across all of the sectors that we look after.
Rachel.
My reflection is that we've gone through this process and basically said that we love everything and don't want to cut anything and just want to invest more, and that's not helping, unfortunately. We are going to have to make some pretty tough cuts somewhere, and we better start thinking about it. One of the things that I reflected on after the fact was our depreciation. I think we can look at that differently. I mean, are we actually going to replace these facilities at the end of their life or not? And if not, we don't depreciate it, we've got insurance, I think we might have to look at that a bit more carefully, given that's one of our biggest operational expenses. But yeah, I'm just reflecting on the fact that as elected members, these are our decisions, and we are going to have to make some cuts. And I think we need to be really realistic about that. We've sat here and enjoyed the communication with the teams, and I know none of us want to cut anywhere, but we are going to have to look at doing things differently, and we're going to have to get our heads around that before we start making decisions.
Thank you, Rachel. Well said. That is the nub of the matter. Christine.
I don't disagree with that at all. And I think we have to be strategic about how we do it. That's the key for me. But look, I just wanted to acknowledge from this morning, and I've already had the conversation with Julie, but I want to acknowledge that, there's always this tension between governance and operations, and governors often struggle with keeping their sticky little fingers out of operational things, and Julie took a real risk today, and she opened up stuff she does not need to for us, and we just have to bear in mind we are governors, we are not chief executives or leaders or managers in this organisation, and if we want Julie to do something, including reducing something, it's her that we ask to do it based on a figure, not on us thinking there should be 3 people in this area and 2 people somewhere else. So I thought it was very brave of you, Julie, and thank you very much for doing it. It was a hell of a risk, if you ask me, but you did it, and I'm sure we will act responsibly with it. But a lot of what you've given us is none of our beeswax, so we just need to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Yes, so Julie, we know where the responsibility lies, as per Christine now, so thank you for that.
Sorry, Julie, I don't like that.
We know who to hold accountable. Duncan.
Yeah, just look, my only concern with this process is that we haven't set a target to stick to and worked backwards from that, but rather we've sort of fluffed around a bit, it's not probably the best term, and just sort of backed and forth on a number of things, and shall we do this, shall we do that, without an absolute target in mind. I'm talking about capping rates to inflation. But having said that, the threat of looming rates caps has obviously stimulated some more serious thinking and recommendations from the staff to actually take up some of these opportunities, which I think we could have been doing years ago, such as, what was the word? Council assets, not reassessing them. There was a word for it. Rationalising, that's the one, rationalising council assets, because we could have done that a long time ago, but there's never been that impetus to really get stuck in, because it's a bit awkward and inconvenient, and there's political risk in it. But now, I think with the threat of looming rates caps, that some stuff is getting taken more seriously.
If I may, through the chair.
By all means.
I think too, though, we have our community at heart, and our community in the past has said do more, even in the last long-term plan. We're now having to look at things differently, yes, but we're going to have to be able to communicate that to our communities as well, because I think we'll find that communities definitely want to pay less in rates, but I doubt they're going to want to see a drop in service levels. So that's going to be a tricky thing to manage going forward.
Any further comments on that? We're back with you, Kendall and Aidan.
Thank you for that. And like I said, please, if anything pops up, please just get in touch with Aidan or myself, and we can add it into the pile of feedback. So one thing that we did want to just briefly look at was we have been talking about areas that we would do a deep dive service level review on. So there's been a few that have come up, and we just wanted to share those with you and confirm that those were the areas so far that we've identified. So what this will give us as staff the opportunity to go away and start pulling all of that together. So I'll just bring that up again. Sorry. It doesn't like going full screen. Need to fix that. So this is what we have at the moment. Now we have in past workshops said that we would like to stick to 5 because we believe that is something that staff time and capacity can manage. However, this is your process, so if there is something else that needs to go on there, then by all means we're open to that. So the first one that we have there was community halls, looking at rationalisation. The feedback there was considering each hall case by case. Housing for the elderly, identifying to firstly ensure that tenants are looked after, but exploring options such as transferring to a social housing provider. Also, potentially as we work through our activity area plans, looking at reviewing and benchmarking fees. Another one on there was transport. Again, this wasn't looking at changing it so much, but looking at a priority where we need to invest in and how we can rebalance the funding there. And then again, parks and reserves, the objective looking to reduce maintenance such as mowing costs, and then looking at rationalisation options such as playgrounds and the use of land. So that's where we've landed in terms of the big civil service level of reviews. So if anyone can provide some comment around whether that is looking correct, or and just to note that this list was put together before we had the ones this morning too. So, yeah.
Rachel.
Yeah, one of the other things, I know we looked at reserve rationalisation, but playground rationalisation is another one. I think we've got a lot of playgrounds that are going to cost a lot of money to maintain. Perhaps we just have a few really good ones that we look after. And one of the other things under parks and reserves, I have had a bit of feedback where community groups would like to be able to participate and assist, but quite often our policy settings are not enabling that. You know, we've got a really good working example out at the Kinloch Domain where a community group said, hey, let us have a go at looking after this reserve. And they've done that. They had their health and safety in place. They've gone out there, they've planted the grass, and they're looking after it. And that's something our Parks and Reserves team now don't have to do. So enabling community participation and getting our policy settings and our barriers out of the way.
Thank you, Rachel. Sandra.
Yes, just going back to the housing for the elderly, I sort of think that if we do the first one first, the second one might not be necessary. I'm not sure that we should do the two at the same time. Yeah.
Kendall, if I may, I thought it might be helpful to reassure councillors what the next couple of steps look like. So you're looking for initial guidance today. We obviously haven't had the chance to go away and collate all the notes and have a good look. So we've got 2 more workshops. I just thought it might be helpful just that you're not having to give us absolute confirmation about where we're going today. Is that okay, Kendall? Sorry.
So yes, please don't feel like you have to give us everything today. So yeah, this is just confirming what you have already told us. We are going to be coming back to you for another wrap-up session, a more in detailed, fuller dive into that, so that we can present what you've told us in a much more coherent kind of way. And yes, we've also on the list we have our significant projects as well, where we'll be having workshops on those. But purely today is just to get some closure, confirm what we have heard, and then we will be coming back to you. If I can say anything, an LTP process is iterative, and it will feel like you are talking about the same things many, many times. So yes, we will be back to discuss all of this with you again.
Thank you. Kevin.
Just to comment on your last bullet point there, and leveraging off Rachel just said around rationalisation of reserves. I just want to make sure that we have the crossover into our policy settings, particularly around development contributions, land rather than money, because there'll be, as we discussed earlier, we've already reached a point where we've arguably got enough reserves and we don't need any more. So the rationalisation is also a policy setting in the development space.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other comments anyone wants to make?
No, well, I just want to say, Julie? No. I just wanted to say a big thank you from us all. This has been a really useful exercise for us as well as staff and understanding where we need to go and focus our time on as well. So yeah, I just want to say thanks, and yeah, we will be back in touch with you, putting some time in your diaries.
Yeah, and I think, you took the words from my mouth really, so I just wanted to thank the Mayor and councillors too, because I think going into this process we weren't quite sure how much detail we'd be getting into, and we did want to be transparent, so we gave you a lot of information, and thank you for being so respectful through the process. Also to the team too, I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to see faces that you don't normally see in the chamber, so it was a great opportunity for you to meet some of our passionate staff members in terms of the work that they do, and just again thank you for the conversation through this process.
So thank you very much for that. We'll have a closing karakia because this finishes off this part of it, and then at 1 o'clock we start with the Rukawa group, and we'll start again with the opening karakia there. So, Nahuia, can I ask you to lead the closing? You've got such a lovely voice. Thank you for that. We'll back here at 1 o'clock.